cut your finger.
Yeah, with a hammer.
Cut it with a hammer.
Yeah. It's a big cut.
Definitely the wrong tool. My name's Predator, and I came to squat at Broadway in about March of the year 2000. I met up with two of the people who were squatting here at the cafe in Enmore because they were interested in approaching the organisation cap.org.au in terms of whether or not we could provide the software and hardware for an independent media centre, which the squatters wanted to set up actually in this building. It turns out ultimately it wasn't set up there, but that was where the nucleus of the idea came from. And when I mentioned to some of the squatters who were already here that I had a little bit of knowledge about locks and electrical systems, they said, "Oh yeah, well, you know, if you want to stay here, you're welcome to do so. We need your skills." So I came along in March and remediated the room above this one, which meant that I basically put electricity on there, and that was done using conduit and wires and fittings scavenged from the cool room in the adjacent building. I put sheet steel over the floors, and that was from the stove shop 2 doors up. Put down carpet, which was in the basement of the building next door, and it's quite reasonable. It was a bit noisy. Originally I was sleeping on a mattress that was directly on the floor, and when trucks go by on Broadway you could feel the buildings shake. And I noticed that you couldn't feel them that much when when you put it up on milk crates, so that's what I'm doing with this one. If you want to just look around the room, you can do that. So that's my bed there, and it's just a mattress on a pile of milk crates, and Broadway's out there behind the sheet steel. This isn't the room that I originally remediated though. It's a very nice one. Gabrielle did the art, and Irene did some of the art, and partitioned it up with sheets. And yeah, so it's pretty good. There's a fireplace there, but I never use it. But it helps keep the airflow happening. It's very different living in a squat compared to when you're living in rented accommodation. There aren't sort of squabbles so much about rent and who pays bills and if anyone's ripping anyone else off. But also the whole ethos is very much one of community, I find. There's a whole range of people here with different skills and opinions, and there are some people who are tradesmen and some people who are students and artists, and there's a whole spread of ages. We've got, you know, relatively old people and some young people, and, you know, children and mothers and things here, and it's great to really kind of live in that environment where lots of people are doing lots of things together. You know, we eat together in a lot of cases. We go out and do crazy things together. You know, search the dumpsters or scavenge the surrounding suburb for bits of furniture like what I'm sitting on. I don't think you get that in the sort of apartments that are being thrown up around the city now. As the name suggests, apartments seem to be designed to keep people apart and isolated so that they're at home playing with their Nintendo or watching TV rather than getting together and, you know, doing things in art spaces or having big wild parties together and all that sort of stuff like we do in the back lane and in the backyard. It's a much more friendly and secure kind of environment, I think. So that's one of the reasons that I think squatting is so much better than rental accom. Plus, in rental accommodation, you're a lot more constrained in what you can actually do with a place, because there's this bond that you've given to the real estate agent, which is basically a promise not to do anything strange to the building. We came into a place here which was effectively going to be demolished anyway, so we were a lot more free to do with it as we wanted. So not only were we free to remediate the place and make it safe in terms of fire safety and electrical safety, which we got certified, and to do with the rooms pretty much as we chose. But we were also free in that we weren't compelled to kind of pay anyone for the privilege of doing these. We weren't going to lose a whole load of money for modifying the rooms to do exactly what we wanted. In fact, I think this is a freedom that you're afforded even more than the freedom that people who own their own house have, because they're trying not to stuff their house up or do anything really strange to it which might reduce the resale value of it later. So it's a great freedom. It's really quite liberating. I've never been able to just sort of randomly do stuff to a building, you know, spray paint. I'll go back to renting. Yeah, there's also this perception in the media that the people who are squatting are doing it pretty much for fun, like it's as if it's just a political thing that we're doing, and this really deflects the public's attention from the reason we're doing it is because it's actually, in a way, it's necessary for us. Not all of us have incomes that can support the continual drain on your finances that rents and mortgages are. We have jobs that aren't necessarily paying us a lot of money. I mean, I do a couple of things for money, mainly teaching people how to program HTML over at the Uni of New South Wales. But I do that only for a couple of months a year. I do lots of other little cash jobs and things. But there's no real alternative that I'd have to live in a place like this unless I was actually squatting. There's just no way I could financially sustain it. I don't live a particularly expensive life. I don't think I'm really whooping it up all the time. And I do a lot of other stuff that doesn't actually get paid, but which I think is necessary and good for the community. Some of the stuff I do is bush remediation, just ripping out lantana from public parks and stuff. And I just do that off my own bat. No one pays me, and I'm not insured to do it or anything. I just do it. I'm also involved in running a non-profit internet service provider called cat.org.au, and that's all done on a volunteer basis for very little money. And I guess some of the other community stuff you could say was partly remediating this place. If you look at all the effort that everybody put into getting the electrical sorted, getting the fire certification sorted out, fixing the plumbing, all of that sort of thing, patching the floors, making sure the roof didn't leak, getting carpet in, it probably comes to a good number of thousands of dollars, including the expenses that you pay for things like getting a development application signed and getting building inspectors in. So in a way we're actually putting value back into the community assets here that have just been left to sort of rot. That sort of stuff isn't going to happen when these are all bulldozed, and then the whole architecture will be that individuals will own or lease the little shoeboxes, and they're only going to be doing it for their own benefit. So there's that. There's certainly a need for housing, and for the media to kind of brush this aside and say that we're just doing it for fun and to make a political point is really a bit poor of them. We've heard comments that said that, well, a lot of you have had opportunities, you've had educations up to university level, and this is correct. I have, Brad, Gavin, Lou, a lot of people have actually had that. Some of the people who are here don't. A lot of the people who are homeless that we see have had none of these opportunities, and they're never going to get into a position where they're organised enough to actually present their case to the councils and stuff and say, look, we do actually deserve to have self-managed housing here. So in a way, hopefully we're not just really doing this for ourselves, but we're also doing it for all those other people who aren't in a position to really get up and organise and do it in the way that we've been able to. So yeah, I think that's a good thing. You should squat. You must go find an empty. I'm not going to do the rant. But yeah, it's very much a question of make friends with other people who can help you, and you've got to help them. Make a contribution, and the squat will work well then. So go do it. It'll change your life. It'll totally change your perception of how our suburbs work and what apartments really do, and it helps to reverse some of that atomisation of society that seems to be taking over, where nobody knows any of their neighbours, and people live in these walled fortresses with electric opening gates and security guards and all that stuff. It's very much about taking it all back into our own control. Yeah, go do it. It's good. You've got to just restart doing it, and then more people will get interested in it. I don't think it'll ever go away. It's very much a tradition. In fact, it's the behaviour that a whole country is really based upon. That's what the Europeans did when they kind of landed here. They just squatted on the stuff that the Aborigines were living on, and we all still are.
Just the top one? Yeah.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. I woke up this morning.
Hang on.
Do I have a pair of bicycles?
Yeah.
Pull that out, it's getting in the way.
No, I do. I'll just bang it in with this. Hang on. Not tall. Not close.
Alright.